You know that moment when the salt spray hits your face just right, carrying the tang of low tide and the faint, briny promise of a good haul. That's how mornings start in Port Haven, this scrappy little fishing village clinging to the jagged coast of Maine like a barnacle on a hull. I'm out there on the weathered dock my great-grandpa hammered together with his bare hands back when lobsters were currency and the only traffic jam was a seal blocking the channel. The fog rolls in thick as chowder, muffling the cry of gulls and the distant rumble of engines firing up. I'm Eliza Thorne, 48 years old, elbows deep in bait buckets, sorting traps that smell like dead herring and diesel dreams. Life's simple here: haul, sort, sell, repeat. Or it was, until Victoria Langford decided my family's dock was her personal eyesore. It was a Tuesday, the kind where the sun peeks through like it's shy about committing. I'd just winched up the last crate of Bugs Prime hen lobsters, claws clicking like impatient fingers when I hear it, the whine of an outboard motor cutting through the mist. Not one of ours, this one's too polished, too entitled. Out of the haze bobs the sleek little Boston whaler, all fiberglass gleam and no salt scars, with a woman at the helm who looks like she stepped off a yacht catalog. Blonde bob helmeted against the wind, oversized sunglasses perched on a nose that's seen more Botox than barnacles, and a life jacket that's probably never touched water. She ties off at my dock like she owns the tide, steps aboard with the click of heels on wet planks that makes my teeth grind. Miss Thorne, her voice slices the air, all polished vowels and false concern, like a telemarketer selling salvation. Victoria Langford, President of the Port Haven Coastal Preservation Society. I'm afraid we've received multiple complaints about this structure. She gestures at the dock with a manicured hand, the one clutching a clipboard like a shield. Behind her, two guys in ill-fitting khakis and polo shirts that scream in turn unload a tripod with some gadget that beeps like a metal detector at a beach party. It's encroaching on protected wetlands. Immediate cessation of operations required, per our bylaws. I straighten up, wiping fish slime on my overalls, the cold Atlantic breeze carrying the sharp scent of iodine from the seaweed tangled in my boots. Encroaching, this dock's been here since 1923, permitted by the state, grandfathered in through every storm and statute. Ma'am, you got the wrong tide chart. This here's Thorne Wharf, legal as lobster rolls on a Friday. Who's we exactly? Her smile doesn't reach those Ray-Bans. The society represents 200 concerned residents committed to preserving our pristine coastline. Your activities are disrupting marine habitats. One of the interns starts snapping photos, the flash popping like gunfire in the fog. Before I can grab my phone, she's slapping a laminated notice on my bait shed: cease and desist, unauthorized commercial use in eco-sensitive zone. I taste salt and fury, that metallic bite you get when the world's trying to sink your ship. What would you do if some stranger rolled up to your family's legacy and slapped a fake eviction notice on it? Would you laugh it off, or start sharpening your gaff hook? Tell me in the comments, where are you tuning in from? Ever had a busybody try to board your boat? Hit me with your stories, let's turn this into a flotilla of fighters. Let me rewind the reel a bit, because Port Haven wasn't always this battleground between bait buckets and Botox. I'm Eliza, call me Liza to folks who aren't filing liens on my livelihood. Widowed 5 years now, since Tom went down with the Andrea Gale knockoff in that nor'easter off Monhegan. He was the dreamer, I was the doer. Together, we ran Thorne Lobster Co., a one-dock operation that's fed 3 generations on the fruits of the sea. My great-grandpa built this wharf with timber from the family farm up the hill, cedar so tough it laughed at shipworms. It's not fancy, splintered planks patched with whatever washed ashore, a winch house that creaks like an old man's knees, and a float that bobs gentle in the swell, painted red with Thorne in letters flaked but fierce. Moving back here after Tom's passing was my anchor. Sold the house in Portland, traded city sirens for buoy bells. Civilian life after nursing school felt like trading a scalpel for a knife-edge balance on a rocking deck. I worked the traps dawn to dusk, sell to the co-op in town, and tinker with the old Boston whaler Tom restored smells like varnish and varnish, memories baked in. Port Haven's the kind of place where everyone knows your middle name Marie, after my grandma and your ex's bad habits. Narrow streets lined with clapboard cottages painted lobster buoy bright, the air thick with clam flats at low tide and wood smoke from lobster bakes come evening. The harbor's a postcard, masts clinking like wind chimes, ferries chugging to the islands, and that eternal rhythm of waves slapping pilings. But lurking in the postcard's shadow is Victoria Langford. 55 going on entitled 40, she's the queen bee who buzzed in from Boston 5 years back, buying up the old cannery on the point and turning it into Harborview Estates condos with views that cost more than my annual haul. Picture her, yoga-toned in Lululemon that never sweats, a pearl necklace that's probably cultured in a lab, and eyes like polished agates, cold and appraising. She drives a Tesla that's useless on our gravel roads, parks it ostentatiously at the village green. Victoria's the self-crowned president of this Coastal Preservation Society, a ragtag group she started in her solarium with wine spritzers and whispers about saving the vista. But dig a little, and it's clear, she's a real estate shark in eco-camouflage, flipping waterfront for fat commissions. Her motivation greed dressed as green. My dock blocks her dream of a luxury marina slips for super yachts, not working boats like mine. To her, I'm not a widow keeping the family flame, I'm flotsam in her fortune. The stakes this dock's more than wood and rope. It's Tom's laugh echoing in the wind, my boy's future little Jack, 12, already tying knots like a pro, and the pulse of Port Haven itself. Lose it, and we lose everything: the business, the home up the hill with its sagging porch and wild raspberry patch, the quiet certainty that some things outlast storms. That first notice was just the hook in the water. By Friday, the harassment netted out, anonymous complaints to the harbor master about oil slicks from my engine, never mind the diesel rainbow was from her neighbor's pleasure craft. Then came the inspections: Victoria's interns in waders too clean for mud, probing the pilings with probes that looked like they belonged in a lab, not a lobster yard. The air hummed with their drone footage, buzzing like horseflies over my traps. Documenting habitat disruption, one mumbled, while I radioed the Coast Guard for a real permit check. Spoiler, mine cleared, there's smoke. I fired back old school, a weathered logbook from Gramps' day, entries in faded ink tracking every repair, every state stamp. But Victoria escalated like a squall line. Week 2, my traps started vanishing, ghosted overnight, boys sliced clean. The harbor master, old Sal down at the dock office, smells like tarred lines and regret, shrugged it off. Currents, Liza. Or seals. Seals don't cut with a fillet knife. I installed a cheap trail cam on the float, grainy footage of a skiff in the moonless dark, figures hauling my gear like thieves at a buffet. No plates, but that Boston whaler silhouette unmistakable. Humor in the horror, I started baiting decoy traps with sardine tins labeled Victoria's Ego Fragile. One washed up on her beach, photo emailed to the village Facebook group with a wink, found this floating entitlement. Anyone missing comments exploded half the town, fishermen and shopkeepers alike, piling on with memes of her in a wetsuit wrestling kelp. But the irony bit deeper when the fines rolled in, $250 for unauthorized mooring, slapped on by her society like they ran the tide tables. I paid the first one with pennies, sorted on her doorstep under the watchful eye of her ring cam. The clink-clink of copper on slate sweeter than a claw band snap. Tension built through the months, a slow boil under the summer sun. July brought the petition drive, Victoria door to door in a sun hat that cost more than my fuel bill, clipboard dripping charm like honey over hooks. Signed to save our shores from industrial blight. Sheetku, targeting the summer folk transplants who saw my dock as quaint until it blocked their sunset selfies. My allies emerged slow, Maggie from the bait shop, all freckles and fire, who'd lost her clam license to a similar scam, and Doc Harlan, the retired vet up the hill, whose clinic overlooked the harbor and whose binoculars caught more than birds. That woman slinging more bull than a fertilizer truck, he'd grumble over coffee at the galley diner, where the air's thick with grease and gossip. My counter-navy honed resilience Tom was Coast Guard, taught me knots that hold in gales. I documented like a decalogue, timestamps on every call, photos of her inspections with interns tripping over crab pots, audio of her veiled threats comply, or we'll make this personal. Resilience with a twist of sarcasm, I hung a sign on the Shedthorn Wharf, EST 1923. Victoria free since ever. Tourists snapped pics, locals chuckled. But by August, desperation creased her Botox, a midnight call from the sheriff's deputy about a welfare check after an anonymous tip I'd threatened her with a gaffe. I was home, asleep, Jack was at camp. The deputy, young and green, apologized over pie at the diner next morning, heard it's her again. Smells fishy. September's leaf turn gilded the hill.